We'll start off by customizing our GUI in the Visual Designer. Let me switch back over to the design mode, and let me mention that unless a form is the last file you edited, the design mode won't be enabled. You do need to remember to double-click the view of interest, and that will enable the design mode and switch you over. I'll start with a simple button. I can just use the widget box here on the left and drag the push button onto the form. The first thing I'll do is change the text property of the button. I can do that right here in the property editor. I'll just right-click and select Change Text. I'll relabel the button to display the word Exit. Now let's use the property editor and change the name of the object. I really like Qt Creator's property editor. Let me widen the view a little. The property editor is currently in the color-coded tree view. You can see at the top we have the eldest ancestor Q object, and as we scroll down, we go down the class hierarchy, and we can see where each property lives. I think this is great for learning. We can see the collection of properties that all Q widgets will have, and the handful that are specific to the Q main window class. If you don't like this sorting, you can change to an alphabetic sorting. The sorting item at the top is a toggle that will switch between alphabetic and class sorting. At first, I thought of all these settings as individual, so when I wanted to get back to the tree view category sort, I would select tree view. That's not how it works. You're still in tree view. To get back to class sorting, just toggle the sorting option again. You can also independently turn the color coding on and off. The alternate view to the tree view is the drop-down button view. Let me go back to the color-coded tree view. I want to change the object name, but not on the main view. Let me go back to the form and select the button. I could also have selected the button from the Object Inspector. The Object Inspector is also especially nice in that it gives you a nice graphical representation of how items are nested. I'll just highlight the object name and type in my new name. Let's switch back to edit mode. The XML shows up, and you can see your newly renamed push button. The new name is here, and the new label is down here. You can see it also contains a property named Geometry that specifies its location on the form. You can also do some code folding here. As your form gets more complicated, this can help you stay focused. As we scroll down a little further, you can also see some of the other default form elements that are being created. Notice that you aren't allowed to directly edit the XML file here. There is a convenience button that will take you directly back to the design mode. Let me go to our mainview.cpp file. Pretty much anything you can do in the design mode, you can also do in code. As an example, let me just set the text label in code. Notice that I'm doing this after the call to set up UI, so my label is going to win. I'll run again, and there's the new label. First, let me fix this redundant set of parentheses. Now, let's switch back over to the designer. I want to make this button do something, and that's where Qt's Signals and Slots mechanism comes into play. We can switch the designer into Signals and Slots mode with this Chrome at the top. This button allows us to edit signals and slots. Once it's enabled, the cursor now gives us hints that we're in this edit mode by highlighting various signal sources in red. I can start by clicking on the button and dragging down to a target. In this case, I'll just use the form as my target, even though I'm not after a Q main window slot. Once I let go, I get a dialog. It shows me all the signals for a button and the signature of those signals. When you connect a signal to a slot, you do want to have the method signatures match. I'm interested in the click signal, which provides no parameters, but there are no corresponding slots in main window. Not to worry. What I'm after is an inherited slot, and I can see those by enabling the checkbox at the bottom of the dialog. You'll note that it also shows additional signals for the button. We aren't interested in any of those at the moment. I want the button to close the form, so the close method slot looks like a good choice. I'll select that. Now we can run, and our button will now close the application. So what really happened here? We can use the edit button to see the XML and scroll down near the bottom, and we can see a new connections section with all the data we entered. Well, that's comforting, but we are C++ programmers after all, so where's the code? Once again, let's go take a peek at the generated include file. Right near the bottom, I can see some code related to connect. Let me hide the sidebar so we can get a little more code on the screen. There it is. We can see a static method of QObject named connect is being called. It's getting past our button as the first parameter. The second parameter is using a macro named signal that is being passed the clicked signal. The third parameter is our target main view, and the last parameter uses a macro named slot that is being passed the close slot. How the macros and the meta object compiler work is beyond the scope of this course. Some things you just have to take on faith. Let me get the sidebar back, and let's go back to the form designer. You can remove a signal slot by clicking on it and hitting delete. Let's go back to our main view CPP file and take a stab at adding the connection manually. Since I'm in a class that ultimately derives from QObject, I can just call connect directly. The pop-up tooltip is helpful. It's telling me the first parameter is the sender, so I'll just type in our button. Next, I can see it's looking for the signal, so I'll type in the name of the macro, and when I do that, Completion Assist shows me the available signals. I'll pick the click signal. Next, I'll specify the slot. You probably think I'm creating a bug, but I'm not. You can see there are 6 overloads to this method. You can see them for yourself. Just use the up and down arrow keys to cycle through them. You'll notice one of them doesn't require a target, so I can move right to the slot. Once I type the macro name, I get prompted for the desired slot, and I can pick the close slot, and then run. I'm getting this message because I left the UI_mainview.h file open in the editor, so I'll just click yes. Well, I have a bug anyway. I forgot to add the closing parentheses. Let me fix that and run again. And the button works just like it did before. This is the classic way of doing a connect. Qt 5 adds what I think is a better syntax. I call it better because I prefer compiler errors to runtime errors, and the new syntax uses function pointers, functors, and even lambdas as arguments, so the compiler can do more work for you. Here's how it works. Let me comment out the old code. We start out the same with the old connect method and our sender, but then we can just pass the address of the push button's clicked method, followed by the this keyword for the target, and finally we'll take the address of QMainWindow's close method. We can run, and the app works just like it did with the macros. We can even do this with lambdas. First, we need to turn on C++ 11 support in Qt Creator. I'll just go over to the project file and add the appropriate flag. I'll switch back to my source code. Just to make sure I typed everything right, I'll just use the new auto keyword and make sure it compiles. Okay, we're good to go. Let me get rid of the warning. Let me replace the last parameter with a lambda. I'll capture the this pointer and simply call the close method. Run once more, and everything still works. You can also disconnect via code. You can start with the disconnect method and go through a similar process that you used for connect, but you can also call disconnect on an object instance. There are, again, multiple overloads. Let me just show you the simplest, which will disconnect all slots from the object instance. We run again, and now the button doesn't do anything because the disconnect worked. There are many more things you can do in code, but that's enough for now. I do want to show you one more way to perform this task in design mode. Let me delete my code. While I'm staring at it, let me fix something that I should have done right away when I created it. If you're going to set text in code on GUI objects for real, don't do it this way. Remember to wrap the text in TR. Since we're currently in a class that derives from QObject, we can just use the method name as so. Let me switch back to design mode, and I'll show you what I promise is the last way to deal with signals and slots, as well as how translation happens in the designer. Let me first take care of the translation issue. Let me go back to the Edit Widgets mode and select the button. Now, using the Properties editor, I can scroll down to the QAbstract button section and open up the text property for the button. You can see that the checkbox for translatable is enabled. This is going to wrap the text in TR in our generated code. Okay, back to the final way I wanted to show you to set up signals and slots. I can open the Signals and Slots Editor view. The view opens. I can use the Add icon to start, then double-click on the sender and select the item on the list. Do the same for the signal, the receiver, and the slot. Run one last time, and our button does what we would expect. Signals and slots are very important to Qt programming, so it's worth experimenting and getting comfortable with it. We'll be using it more in the upcoming modules. Slots and signals are in a many-to-many relationship. You can have many slots for a single signal, and you can have many signals go to one slot. Signals can also connect to other signals. We're done with the Qt Plumbing course and this module. In the next module, we'll start in on a real-world application.